So a week ago from today, last Saturday, I was in Toronto at what's called the Mindful Society Conference, a beautiful conference put on by a group originating in Toronto, really looking at the application of mindfulness across many venues: healthcare, education, children's education, adult education, working with addiction using mindfulness. What else? Many, many things. There was a fellow there from Brazil who has a center in Brazil. He's invited me to come teach there. That could be fun. And he has a project where he's been bringing mindfulness into inpatient psychiatric hospitals for distressed youth and children. So beautiful breadth of application of mindfulness to various aspects of wellness and difficulty and suffering. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen to be one of the presenters presenting on the topic that some of you are familiar with that I teach, in addition to the other things I teach, which is the application of mindfulness and Buddha Dharma to love and romantic and sexual relationships. So I was there. This is the 5th year of the conference, the first time I've had the pleasure to go, and the first time they've highlighted that particular topic. I share that because today I want to talk about why mindfulness is not enough, which may be a bit of a heretical statement given that I was just at this profoundly beautiful mindfulness conference. The Buddha didn't teach mindfulness in isolation. He taught it as part of 7 factors of awakening or enlightenment. And what I'd like to share today is some teachings on each of the 7 qualities of mind that the Buddha suggested we cultivate. Mindfulness is arguably key or most important, but allow me to put this forward. If you're a thief, you can think of one of those Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies or something, where they're, going to the great art museum and there's all those lasers of, if you cross the red laser, the alarm will go off and you're, doing these amazing, completely defying the laws of gravity things to maneuver your way to the treasure you're about to steal. That's profound mindfulness, and I'm not being facetious. Profound precision, mindfulness of direct experience, to be able to navigate through the various traps and bells and whistles to steal the precious object. Is that awakening? No. Is that wholesome activity? Arguably, no. But it's mindful. Because mindfulness in general and in specific, perhaps, is about paying close, direct, uninterrupted attention to the object. If the object is to navigate through the Louvre to steal the Mona Lisa, if I'm profoundly mindful, I can manage that task, perhaps. That's not what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach be super specific at doing whatever it is you're doing. He taught the path to suffering and the liberation of suffering. He taught how to work with the mind to eliminate, eventually entirely as possible, all of the negativity and suffering in the mind. He didn't say be super mindful so you can be a super spy or a super thief or whatever. A surgeon is ideally incredibly mindful, very focused on what they're doing as they're cutting into your body. A dear friend of ours who's pretty young was told this week that he needs open heart surgery. He needs a valve replacement. And so one would hope and assume, and in fact it will be so, that the heart surgeon will be very mindful. He'll be very focused on the detailed, direct experience of cutting and forming and replacing. Mindfulness is not enough. Mindfulness is not enough for an awake, happy, bright mind and heart. It's profoundly important, and it's a tremendous place to practice, maybe for years. Developing more ballast or more skill at bringing the mind into the direct experience of what's actually happening, allowing distractions to fade into the background. I am cutting into this person's chest. I am avoiding getting caught on my way to steal this object. But for us, hopefully, we have a bit of a bigger purpose than thievery. And our purpose, whether we're articulating it or not in our own minds this morning, I believe the purpose of each of you is you'd like to be happier. You'd like to have less suffering. You'd like to be more engaged with your life with joy and interest and satisfaction, perhaps kindness, compassion, good deeds. And that is a bigger picture, which is where these 7 factors of awakening or 7 factors of enlightenment come in. One of them is mindfulness. I'd like to propose that you can think of a teeter-totter or a seesaw, and you've got mindfulness in the middle, and 3 factors on one side and 3 factors on the other. And mindfulness is the balance point. And we've got 3 active factors that I'll describe in a moment, and we've got 3 more passive factors. And the teaching from the Buddha is to observe and develop all 7 of these factors of mind, factors of life, factors of being engaged on our Saturday today and whatever pursuits and curiosities we explore once class has reached whatever we call an end. So the 7 factors of awakening. Sometimes I like to say, imagine, it's the old Star Trek phrase, I think, going places no person has gone before. Right? Imagine that you were on a spaceship and you went to a new land. And when you arrived, some conveniently English-speaking native of said planet came up and said, we have 2 sets of maps. You can choose which one you want. One map will give you the keys and the directions and the landmarks you need to move to a place where you will be happy, content, have equanimity, be compassionate and loving, no war, no suffering, no mental suffering. We have that set of maps, directions, and instructions. We also have this other set of maps that will lead you to selfishness and confusion and running around like a chicken with your head cut off and being unclear how to be happy entirely and suffering a lot when the world changes. Which maps would you choose? Obviously, we'd all choose the first set of maps. We'd say, I want those ones. I want the ones that show me a path, that give me instructions, that give me education, to lead me towards freedom from suffering, to lead me towards kindness, an open, compassionate heart, a mind that understands the truth of reality. I want the happy maps, not the how to be miserable maps. I'm already pretty good at that. I was good at that on my home planet. I ran around thinking having a certain amount of money in my RRSP would make me happy. I ran around thinking falling in love with someone taller, shorter, fatter, skinnier than the person I'm currently with would make me happy. I ran around thinking that a chocolate candy or an orgasm or flowers or being asked on a date by a famous person would make me happy. It didn't work that well, so I hopped on a spaceship and I looked for something else, and here I am. It's both a silly and a profound analogy for the map we're about to embark on right now, which is one of those maps that could be given to us. It was by the Buddha. Said, here you go. Here's a map. If you follow this, you'll end up with a mind and a heart that are awake. You'll end up with less suffering. You'll end up with more, we could say, on-demand happiness, clarity, loving kindness, and compassion, instead of sort of fluky, happiness and compassion. Like, I'm having a really good day today and I don't really know why. And I appreciate that the mind is bright and the heart is happy. But I don't know how to recreate it and I don't know how to sustain it. The map says, here you go. I strongly invite all of you to follow this map. There are many maps in Buddha Dharma. The one we're going to explore today are the 7 factors of awakening. Mindfulness is only 1/7 of the qualities each of us should look to develop in our meditation, in our mind, and in our life. Playing with your grandchildren later, going for a walk with a friend later, grocery shopping later. All of those you can bring these 7 factors to. So we're picturing a seesaw, a teeter-totter. Mindfulness is in the middle. What is mindfulness? Various ways it's described. Sati is the Pali word. Mindfulness is, to some degree, being present and aware and paying attention to what's actually occurring. Being in direct contact and having the direct experience of what's actually occurring. Just this right now. We endeavor to bring, as we observe the breath and then the mind's hijinks or the sensorium's hijinks, we attempt to bring some non-judgmental awareness to our mindfulness practice. Breathing in, breathing out. Oh, this is so hard. We attempt, as we train, to not judge that reaction or not judge the mind negatively for racing about planning what we're going to do this afternoon. We attempt to go, oh, a lot of planning happening, and then bring the mind back and redirect it on the breath. Mindfulness at best is focused attention on what's directly happening with non-judgmental awareness. That's classes and retreats worth of teaching right there. We can unfold and unpack in future times together. But since it's only one of 7 and we don't have unlimited time this morning, I want to talk about the other 6. I talked about 3 and 3 is one useful way to approach this particular topic. 3 active qualities of mind that we develop and can practice and can look for and can strengthen. And then there's the 3 more passive qualities of mind that we can argue are a bit of an outcome of developing the 3 active qualities and mindfulness. So the 3 active qualities are curiosity, energy or enthusiasm, and what's variably called joy, happiness, zest. And I'm going to go through each of these and repeat them. So let's start with what's often called the second factor of mindfulness. In the list, mindfulness usually comes first. I'm sort of putting it in the middle. They're both perfectly helpful. Investigation of states or curiosity is, as the name implies, not just watching the breath. Watching the breath. Direct experience of the breath, but it's adding an active component of curiosity or investigation. A lot of people aren't given that instruction early on, and it may be new to some of you, which is in addition to beginning to train the mind to focus a bit more in mindfulness of breathing. When you've got a little bit of stability, you can stay mindful for a few breaths or 10 breaths some of the time. You're not just completely lost in thought the entire meditation. Start being a little bit curious. There's a number of ways, a number of classical teachings on how to investigate the investigation of the meditation, but one is with a noting practice. Some of you are familiar with this. This will be a new instruction to some of you. So let's say you're practicing mindfulness of breath, breathing in, noticing sensations, breathing out, breathing in. Oh gosh, I forgot. I think the tank's pretty low on gas. I'd better get gas after class. Which gas station will I go to? So there's a thought and a story. And when you realize you've lost attention on the breath, you can get curious and note or label what the distraction was in a very simple way. In this case, you might be breathing in, breathing out, gasoline, thought. Oh, thinking. That's the noting practice. You mentally note what the distraction is with a word. Very simple. You don't get into a big story about, look at me, thinking about gasoline. You just attempt to note it. It's a distraction. Da-da-da. Gasoline. Which one? I could go to that one. I can go, oh, wait. Thinking. Back to the breath. You note, you drop it as best you're able, and come back to the breath. This is one subtle way to start investigating the states. There are many others. So then you breathe, breathing in, breathing out, mindfulness of breath. You become aware of an itchiness, let's say on the elbow, as I said earlier. Oh, yeah. Oh, right, don't scratch it. And then you can note sensation. You can even note itchy. Come back to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. Hey, I'm getting pretty good at this. Note, thinking. Back to the breath. This is one small step that's a big step in some ways to bringing a more investigative curiosity to your meditation. Instead of sort of sitting there and watching your breath, you're noting. That is a beautiful mindfulness practice, and I'm introducing it. Arguably, there are different ways to teach this, but as one way to be curious about your experience. Investigation of states or curiosity. Let's take it away from the mindfulness practice of breath practice to life. So today, if you're playing with said grandkids or getting said groceries or walking said dog or whatever you're doing today, we'll all have a number of busy, interesting, I hope, things happening. The key there is interesting. Can we bring curiosity? this second quality, this investigative, curious quality of mindfulness, of the mind, the 7 factors of enlightenment, mindfulness, and this curiosity or investigation. There's various ways to translate the word. Hence, I'm using several of them because one of them might fit for you better than another. Curiosity, investigation, analysis of the meditation and of life. If you're with your grandchildren, instead of sort of checking out in a mindless way, playing Candyland or a board game or something and thinking of something else, running your grocery list in your head, can you become curious about what is this experience directly right here, right now? Look at this child and how they're engaging. Bringing the question of investigation, like a good scientist, to the meditation and to life, to a meal. When we have a meal at our teacher's home, there's curiosity and investigation of the meal. So invariably, we sit and it's beautiful food prepared carefully and beautifully by whomever's preparing the food that day. And we sit, and often there's a, gosh, what is that? What is that flavor in there? Is that a bit of saffron? Or there's a curiosity and a real appreciation of what's happening. What does that do? It brings the mind to the activity we're actually doing, which is mindful, just eating, experiencing with curiosity and investigation the flavors of the food. We were there a month or so ago, and we had gluten-free waffles for breakfast. And there'd been, I was aware that there'd been a cultivation of the recipe with certain gluten-free flours and trying these ones and that ones and blends to get a certain texture, a certain flavor, adding maybe vanilla, adding a bit of this. And it was a very tasty bite of waffle. So I said, what flours are you currently using? And how do you get that kind of crisp on the outside and tender on the inside? Sounds like fried chicken, but it was a waffle. And there was a true curiosity, like, that's not how most of us eat our meals, is it? That's a mindfulness of what's happening and a curiosity about how. It's that simple. If you do nothing else, if you take nothing else out of today's class, take the quality of investigation or curiosity about your meditation, about your mind states, about your life, about your meal, about the trees outside the window behind us. Curiosity and investigation. This can go much further. Some of you work with a book called The Mind Illuminated, which I highly recommend, by Culadasa, or Chuladasa is his ordained name, and John Yates is his neurocognitive Western scientist name. The Mind Illuminated. It's a very detailed meditation manual, very readable but very deep. And he talks in there about how to develop this quality of investigation and to analyze the mind's qualities. We're pretty sloppy, a lot of us, about our meditation, and there's persons in the room who are guilty of this, who've been meditating quite a while, is we just kind of plunk down and we go, I want to feel good. Let's be honest. I'm going to meditate so I feel good. Okay, but that's not awakening. If you meditate to feel good, in time it can become just another tool to soothe yourself and avoid reality, right? I'm not dealing with life well. I'm not curious or involved in my life. I'm having trouble in my work, relationships, my body. I'll meditate to feel better for 45 minutes, and then I come off the cushion and back into life, and I feel bloody awful. That's not ultimately what we're after. It's a heck of a good start to develop a mindfulness practice that soothes us, maybe calms us, helps us develop tranquility, 1 of the 7 we're going to get to. But that's not what it's all about. We want to move beyond that and get curious and investigate. So that's the second quality of mindfulness, the second factor of enlightenment, curiosity or investigation. The third is energy or enthusiasm. The Pali word for that is virya or wirya. The Pali word, by the way, for the investigation of states is Dhamma Vichya. My pronunciation is not great, but it's Vicaya. Dhamma Vichya. And that's the investigative enthusiasm, curiosity piece. This third factor of mindfulness, of enlightenment, we've got mindfulness, we've got curiosity. We then move into energy or enthusiasm, virya. Virile, by the way, the Latin root, similar root to the Pali. Virya, virile, energy, life force, power, These are the sort of qualities we can bring. Remember I said these first three are active? We can work on these. We can go to the mind gym and practice more curiosity. Lazy minds aren't curious. Active minds can be trained to be curious. Well, what do you think about playing baseball? What do you know about baseball? I don't know. Doesn't interest me. Lazy mind. Curious mind, I don't know. I know next to nothing about baseball. Tell me, what's the deal? Like, how is it played? I don't actually really know. Curious mind, lazy mind. Active mind, passive mind. So developing curiosity, and I've moved on to the third one, which is with energy and enthusiasm. Think of, I don't know, a puppy. They're pretty enthusiastic when they're awake, and then they're the rest of the time. But they explore, curious investigation, with energy. Oh, that's cool. Oh, what about this? What about this? And I don't mean an ungrounded silliness, which a puppy might have. For us, we want to be in our meditation, in our practice, and in our life. We want to bring energy and enthusiasm. Another translation of the word virya is effort. In other words, guess what? You got to do a bit of heavy lifting, or a lot of heavy lifting to train. Same as everything else we find valuable and important. We train, we practice, we do it sometimes when we don't want to. We do it because we know the ultimate outcome has value to us. You're here. Probably in some of the minds this morning there was a bit of a, I'd like to go to Dharma class, but gosh, it's a nice day, or it's a bit of a drive, or these competing demands. But your curiosity, your investigation, and your enthusiasm and effort brought you here. Well done. The active qualities of moving toward happiness, moving away from suffering, moving towards less suffering and liberation. What do you value currently? Here's a thought experiment, and this one can make us feel a little bit, uh-oh. If you look at your current daily and weekly hours of your day, energy output, and things you're spending time on, okay, literally this last 7 days, from last Saturday to this Saturday. If we look at what you're putting effort into, time on, energy into, as an indication of what matters to you, review. I want you each to take a couple of minutes in your head and think about the last week. How many hours did you spend doing X? How many hours did you spend doing Y? What did you mostly put effort into? And how valuable were the things that you put the highest number of hours in the last 7 days into? I want us all to think about that for a few minutes here. By our energy, effort, time commitment, if we took that at face value as showing what matters the most to us these days, what does that look like? What did I spend most of my time doing? What were the top 5, maybe? And what does that indicate about where I'm putting my effort? And then by implication, whether I mentally agree with it or not, what means the most to me these days? What am I apparently valuing the most? To review, we're talking about the 7 factors of enlightenment, the 7 factors of awakening, the map. If we were Star Trekians and went to where no one had gone before and someone said, here's 2 maps, this one will take you to happiness, freedom, and liberation. This one will take you to what you're already stuck in. Let's choose the wise map, the map laid out by the Buddha. And this particular map of today is the 7 factors of awakening: mindfulness, curiosity and investigation, which is partly what you just did. You were curiously investigating some of your own experience based on that thought experiment of the third factor of enlightenment, enthusiasm, effort, or energy. How much energy are you putting into what activities? We took the last week as an example. I'd love to hear from one or two people of something you observed and then perhaps shared with your study buddy there around, where we're putting energy and whether we feel good, neutral, or not so good about putting so much energy there. Anybody have something they'd be willing to share? I heard you all. You had lots to share. Yes.
I think what we were discussing is that time is limited, and that in our discussion it came up that we wish we were doing other things that we weren't doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard in that case to bring full focus to what you're doing.
Right, so being very busy, time being limited, realizing that maybe we're doing things we're spending a lot of time and effort on things that are not our top priorities, and also trouble bringing focus to what we are doing because of feeling kind of pulled in many directions, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How many other people resonate with that? Oh, only 3 of you? Come on, how many of you resonate with what you just heard here? Fairly common for a lot of us. Yeah. Time is limited. I've tried, and I'm sure most of us have tried to create more than 24 hours in a day. It doesn't work so well. The Buddha said, and it's translated into English as, meditate as though your hair's on fire. It means we're in a burning building called 100 maybe years body if we're lucky, and time being limited. And what are your priorities? Meditate like your hair's on fire means bring more effort and urgency to how important it is to train the mind if you want more freedom and happiness and less suffering in the mind. That's why I wanted each of us, myself included, to review this week and say, where are we spending energy? How much do we value the things that by our hours in a day indicate they're our biggest priorities? Of course, many of us have to work. We have commitments. I'm not denying that. Certainly it's true for me. But then with our so-called leisure time, what are we doing with those hours? Where's our curiosity and enthusiasm and energy going? Right? And can we tweak it? Can we say, I'm going to turn off the TV more often and go to yoga more often? I'm going to meditate more and be more diligent. I'm going to make more of an effort to get out of the house and connect with good beings that I like to have rich conversations with. Energy and effort. Mindfulness, curiosity or investigation, and effort or energy is what we're bringing together in that little thought experiment and discussion. And I thank you for engaging in it. Are you practicing? Would be the straightforward way to say it. Are you meditating? Or do you dip into these classes now and then and it's helpful and you have an intention or a curiosity, but you're not practicing outside of class? I strongly encourage us to take the Buddha's admonition. Meditate as though your hair's on fire. No matter how busy we are, we could create half an hour a day to practice. Might mean getting up early. Might mean turning off Netflix. It might mean saying no to something that we like but isn't as important. So curiosity and investigation. I said there were 3 active states we can practice. Practice curiosity. Practice energy and effort. And practice this 3rd/4th factor of awakening, which is piti, P-I-T-I is the Pali word. And it's translated as zest, pleasure, joy, or rapture. How many of us would like more zest, pleasure, joy, and rapture? Pick me. Yeah, exactly. That sounds fantastic. And this is both an outcome of training the mind. You'll notice more pleasure and joy in the mind, but it's also an active quality that we can develop. Well, Cheryl/Buddha, how do we develop more joy? Start looking for it. Now, at the meditation level, and Culadasa talks about this in a lovely way in his book, The Mind Illuminated there, look for the joy in the breath. Now, I'm probably not the only one that has had many sessions on the cushion that didn't feel joyful at all. They felt like a difficult, bitter slog till whomever was in charge of the bell rang the darn bell already. So I can stop doing this. I can stop trying to attend to my breath. My neck is screaming with discomfort. My mind is screaming with discomfort. I can't even attend to one complete inhale, much less multiple ins and outs. Oh God, I hate meditating. Not much joy in that. Even in a really difficult, unpleasant sitting session, if you look for it, you will discern moments, maybe seconds, of ease or pleasantness or joy in the mind if you investigate with effort. You're starting to see how these fit together, I hope. If you investigate the meditation with effort, dropping in the question, what feels pleasurable or what is pleasurable? And just do the practice. And there will be moments where you'll notice a neutrality or a positivity to the quality of mind. It might only last a few seconds, but they're absolutely there. And why I want many of you to become more active in your meditation practice is to bring curiosity and effort to looking for pleasure. 1, 2, 3, or 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, depending how we number them, doesn't matter. Mindfulness is the practice. Use more effort, more curiosity, and more looking for joy and pleasure in the meditations. We'll start to, over time, and for some of us quite quickly, brighten the meditation. Frankly, make it more fun and more interesting. I'm watching my breath isn't always fun or interesting, is it? I'm watching my breath and I'm curious to see what this breath is like. Gives you a little bit more to do. I'm going to bring as much attention as I can to the direct experience of pleasure or pleasantness in the breath, in the body. Gives you something more to do. You're engaged. These are the 3 active qualities in the 7 factors of awakening or enlightenment. Investigation and curiosity. Effort, enthusiasm. Put some muscle into it. Don't be a sloppy, lazy meditator. And looking for pleasure, rapture, joy, piti, zest. So, wow, that's a whole lot more than we might be doing a lot of the time in our mindfulness meditation practice. It's really helpful. We need new things where the mind gets bored, right? I'm bored of looking at the breath. Good, here's some new stuff. Start noting the breath, thinking. Hunger. Itchy. Engage that way. Start looking for moments of pleasure or neutrality or pleasantness. Oh, that feels all right. Hey, wow, I found a pleasant moment. Thinking. You're more engaged with the practice. You're more curious, which is the second factor, about the practice. These all start to come together. You've got that seesaw. You've got mindfulness in the middle. We've got 3 active factors you can develop. More curiosity and investigation. More zest, pleasure, joy, and more energy and enthusiasm. Not just in the meditation, but when you eat lunch after this. When you talk to someone after this. When you were talking, there was a fair bit of curiosity, energy, and pleasure for a lot of you. Aha! It wasn't a random exercise Cheryl just made up. It was an actual felt experience of bringing some curiosity and investigation and effort and energy and pleasure to an experience of talking about your week, talking about how you spend your time, talking about anything you discovered or were puzzled about in that little thought experiment. Meditation isn't just when your butt's on a chair or a cushion. It's meant to be a life practice all the time. Most of us aren't there, but we can remember to practice all the time. We can have little buzzers and bells and post-it notes that say, "Are you practicing?" ? I strongly suggest you do that, by the way. So we've got the teeter-totter, the seesaw. We've got mindfulness. We've got the first 3 active. Then we've got the 3 we might call passive. It's not a great word. But the 3 qualities of enlightenment, of an awakening, that in a way are more outcomes of practicing the first 4. You can practice these 3, but they're almost more the result of practicing the first 4. And they are tranquility or calm. We all want some more of that. Concentration. a deep focused, a locked and loaded mind, and equanimity. And I'll teach a little bit about each of these three qualities as well. Tranquility or peace, the Pali word is passaddhi. Even the word to me sounds kind of mellow. Passaddhi. Passaddhi. It's got this lovely, and if you think of the word piti, which means zest or pleasure, piti, it's more active, it's more bright. Passaddhi. That's just my interpretation. Peace or tranquility, both of consciousness and the physical body. So through the mindfulness practice, many of you have experienced, the rest of you will, that as you practice mindfulness, even if it's that frustrating struggle in the mind, I can't pay attention to one breath, please ring the bell. If you keep applying effort and energy and doing the practice, there'll come times, moments, and even long stretches where the body and mind will start to feel more peaceful, more settled, more calm. Calm's another translation of passaddhi. And that is pleasant. Now we're reflecting back to piti. They're intertwined. When we feel calm and tranquil, generally we feel more pleasant and more pleasure. The one sort of catalyzes the other factor in the mind. Nantra Rinpoche, my root teacher, and many other bright beings have said, first calm the mind and then wake it up. What does that mean? Well, it means a multitude of things, but the way I want to interpret it today is we do need to develop samadhi or calm, the ability to have a calm, reasonably focused mind, or your mindfulness practice is meant to do that amongst other things, so that we can, from a place of relative calm, first calm the mind, then wake it up. That's why often as a teacher, we don't plunge you into Mahamudra practice right away or plunge you into Tantric deity practice right away, although that can be helpful, because the mind needs a little bit of calm, a little bit of tranquility before it can engage well in some of the perhaps more advanced practices. To put it very simply, if you sit down to meditate, which almost all of us had this experience for quite a long time in the beginning, we were just basket cases. When we attempted to pay attention to the breath, it was the whole time. So if you're given a more advanced practice at that point, you just kind of fail and get discouraged. Just like, hang in there. Let's cultivate the practices, effort, investigation, curiosity, looking for pleasure, practicing a lot of mindfulness, a lot of direct experience of the sensations, of the breath, so that there becomes to be experienced some tranquility and some calm. Once you've got some calm and tranquility, some of the time, through some of your practice, I will start to help you wake it up, to bring it into more engaged practices, broader practices, deeper practices that will illuminate other qualities of mind. You're welcome to try any practice at any time. Most of us find, myself certainly included, that I needed to develop some tranquility before I it's not very accurate language, but got much out of the more advanced practices, had any sort of effectiveness in engaging in more advanced practices. Tranquility, concentration, and equanimity are the outcomes of building the muscle of the first four qualities. And we can kind of practice tranquility, but not really. If I said, okay, everybody, 1, 2, 3, be peaceful. We don't quite know what to do. Right? Which is why it's more of an outcome. So, but if I said 1, 2, 3, let's all really try to attend to the breath. Let's all really try to let the distractions fade in the background. We can do that. We can practice that. And through the outcome of building that muscle, it's like we get more flexibility in the tranquility or calming factor. Does that make sense? You see how it's a bit hard to be peaceful. It's like my least favorite thing to be told on the rare occasion where I'm slightly agitated in my own personal world. Very rare. This is why the husband's under a gag order at class. He's not allowed to comment on that. Should I be agitated? The worst thing you can say to me, or most human beings, is just relax. Yeah. Bad things could happen. Because we can't, right? Just relax. You're agitated, there's cortisol, just relax. Oh, shut up. If someone said, try taking a break and maybe try paying attention to your breath, we could maybe try that. Just relax, just be peaceful, just be tranquil. So practice in the gym of training the mind so that the tranquility and peacefulness can start to be an outcome. The gym's a terrific analogy. If we have a not very flexible body and we go into the right kind of training, flexibility and strength training and etc., we will, as an outcome of that practice, have a more flexible spine or leg or whatever for the most part. So tranquility, the fifth factor. Mindfulness, investigation, curiosity, zest and pleasure, effort and energy, tranquility. Then we've got concentration. And here, I won't give a deep teaching of this. We might spend a whole class on it sometime this summer. But concentration is where one has enough ballast of mindfulness. We can pay attention for several breaths, maybe more. Yes, there's distractions. Sometimes they grab us and pull us off. But, they're fading more into the background of that cocktail party I often talk about. And then we start to really apply more effort and curiosity, number 2 and 3, to really develop deeper concentration, to train the mind to be quite locked and loaded on the meditation object. Let's say it's breath. So it's more, again, locked and loaded. Those are relevant to the actual qualities of jhanic absorption, which is a deep, almost thought-free, deep concentration. That has 6 qualities I won't name right now, but the first 2 are essentially locked and loaded. So the mind is kind of getting more and more calm, more and more focused, and there comes a point if we really up our effort and work with really holding our mind on the object of breath or whatever the object of meditation is, that the mind more or less does a lock and key sort of feeling where it's like clunk, clunk, deeper, really concentrated, really stable. This can lead into, again, I mentioned this word, it's familiar to some and not others, the jhanic absorptions. That's J-H-A-N-A is the word jhana. I've called them the jhanic absorptions. Absorption is a translation of the word jhana. This is a deep concentration state associated with a lot of mental and physical pleasantness, bliss, and joy, where the mind is locked and loaded. And there may be, vague awareness of vague thinking and vague sensation, but it's very far away, and the mind is unperturbed. Boom. Concentrated. This takes training, but it's an outcome of the training. And it's an important step towards some of the next practices. They don't have to happen in a linear way. It's more like a circular, many puzzle pieces way of how we train the mind and move into various practices. The lineage within which I'm trained and that I bring to you draws from both the Theravadan Burmese Vipassana school of Buddha Dharma and the Tibetan Vajrayana school of Buddha Dharma. And so many of you who've worked with me for a while know that we sometimes do breath meditation. Sometimes we practice Mahamudra Dzogchen meditation, and sometimes some of us practice Vajrayana Tibetan practices. They all are factors of awakening, bringing the mind to a fuller development. It's like an athlete who only trains their cardiovascular is not a very fit athlete. They also need strength through probably weightlifting, etc., and they need flexibility through stretching, through yoga, through other pursuits. If all you do in meditation is train one factor, you're not a balanced athlete of the mind. So tranquility is peacefulness and calm, and concentration is, kind of the ferocious, meditate like your hair's on fire. Boom. I will not be distracted. Yeah, but this is really juicy. No. There's that quality of effort, number 2. Like, strengthen it. I use this phrase, and I didn't mean it to be derogatory at all to any of us, this being included when our mind is lazy. I said, don't be a lazy meditator. Use more effort. Use more intention. Try harder. Sometimes we need to try harder. Instead of, I'm going to watch the breath, but daydreaming is pretty cool. It's like, nope, breath. Yeah, but daydream. Nope, breath. Developing that concentration muscle. Terrific to do a concentration retreat. And just, do a retreat. Many of you are joining me, and more I hope will come to the 10-day retreat that we do annually. I have the pleasure of teaching annually in August on Denman Island. And it's beautiful to have 10 days to develop concentration, to be meditating a lot of hours a day, doing concentrated walking, concentrated yoga, and really developing that concentration. Because for most of it, it's a little harder to kind of advance that part of it in day-to-day practice. You can, Those of you that are meditating an hour a day or more are starting to notice your concentration gets much better. But for a lot of us, it's really in retreat where we kind of build that muscle and then take that more honed concentration, factor number 6, to our day-to-day practice. If you don't have a day-to-day practice, no problem. You're starting today. You practice today. All you need to do is practice tomorrow, and you've got a day-to-day practice, and then repeat. It's not easy, but it's doable. So that's concentration number 6. The 7th factor of awakening or enlightenment is equanimity. You've heard this word in different groupings. The Buddha had many lists and groupings and ways to work with the mind. Equanimity finds its way onto the 4 Brahma Viharas or 4 noble mind states list as well. So equanimity is the quality of mind. The Pali word is upekkha. Upekkha. A quality of mind of a non-preferential warmth, I would call it for today's purposes, where the mind is aware of whatever's happening without grabbing onto what it likes and rejecting what it doesn't like. To be with things as they are, but with an element of grace or an element of kindness or gentle, wise acceptance. I often say, because it's such a beautiful teaching, that the Serenity Prayer is a beautiful 3-line teaching on equanimity. God grant me the, I think it's God. No, Serenity's not in it. That's the title. God grant me the something to change the things I can. The courage, maybe. God grant me the courage to change the things I can, to accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. I may have a word or two wrong. My apologies for that. But this is equanimity. Change the things we can. Accept the things we can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. So the mind watches our life and says, I don't like that the person I love has to have open heart surgery. But one has to accept the things we cannot change. That's equanimity. Doesn't come easy, but it's equanimity. And I like that I have a bunch of money and can go to Las Vegas tomorrow. I don't know where that came from. Okay, but have equanimity. It is positive, it is negative, things come, things go. The equanimous mind, the quality of equanimity is one of what? The 7 factors of enlightenment, people. The 7 ways to be free of suffering. This is a really important map that the people on the other planet gave us. It's the map to be free of suffering. And one of the key qualities to be free of suffering is to have equanimity. That doesn't mean you're foolish. The Buddha said, I know the pleasant for the pleasant and I know the unpleasant for the unpleasant. What does that mean? It means we know we prefer kittens to cancer. That's just wisdom. That's investigative mind. That's intelligence. But we also know both kittens and cancer can come into our life and the life of those we love. And equanimity accepts that's the truth of reality, that some of it's pleasant and some of it's unpleasant. And when we fight reality, we never win. So wisdom to change the things we can from a place of love and compassion, to accept the things we can't from a place of love and compassion, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is a small teaching on the vast topic of equanimity. Sometimes we have whole classes or whole retreats on developing equanimity. So when we're meditating, can we develop, and also it's an outcome of the other factors, more equanimity? So, wow, today the mind's really having a hard time focusing. Equanimity, accept that. With a bit of kindness, a bit of grace. Okay, mind's super busy today. Back to the breath. Super busy. Back to the breath. Super busy. Back to the breath. Without aversion. Ow, the mind's yucky because it's busy. Without, I suck at meditating. Self-referencing story. How about just equanimity? The state of the mind at this point in the meditation, you've already predicted the next 25 minutes are going to be the same. Well, that doesn't make any sense. At this point in the meditation, the mind's very busy. Equanimity. Look for the pleasure. Look for the pleasure of this one inhale or exhale or gap between. Be curious. Make some effort. Invite calm, but don't chase it. You can't create it. We all tried it, didn't work. Concentrate a bit more, applying more effort. And equanimity can come. How was your meditation? Not my favorite question. People ask each other that. How was your meditation? Good, bad? No, they're all good. Why? Because you tried. Because you practiced. So you had a gym workout. How was your gym workout? Good, bad? I'd say it's good because you went to the gym and you did as much as you could do that day. Maybe it wasn't your best effort, or maybe it didn't go perfectly, but it's in the efforting, it's in the practice that eventually the outcomes will come. There's no such thing in a way as a bad meditation. I'll tell a story here that a few of you have heard a couple times. It really helped me when it was said by a teacher, and that's why I like to share it with you. About 20 plus years ago, I lived in San Francisco Bay Area for a couple of years when I was doing my postdoc work in psychology after my PhD. And it was a very, 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 very lengthy program, many hours a week, very demanding. Also, I was very privileged to be there. And I was in the land of Spirit Rock and Jack Kornfield, and many of those teachers live in and around the Bay Area there. And so occasionally I would manage to draw myself away from the hospital and go to a Dharma class, very occasionally, but occasionally. This was, I believe, a Tuesday night, so I would have got the bus into the city from where I lived, worked a 10-hour day at the psychiatric hospital, got the bus home, and managed to stagger into a 7:30 p.m. Dharma class in the town I was living in. And it was the class was led by Sylvia Boorstein, a writer and a teacher some of you may know. Beautiful teacher, beautiful writer. She's got several beautiful Dharma books you might want to check out. One of them's got one of the best titles ever in my view. Don't just do something, sit there. Beautiful writer. And Sylvia was giving this talk. It started with a 45-minute sit. And there I was, in absolute agony. The body was so sore, tight, and tired. The mind was so exhausted and stressed and anxious. And, it was one of those 45 minutes that felt like 45 hours sits, just brutal. Every breath was, I can't do it, I suck. And really, really busy mind, a lot of anxiety, a lot of busyness, really torturous. Couldn't even stay on half a breath without racing. And, just failure. Why do I even bother? Oh, so frustrating. And one of these, we think we're so subtle, and it's not subtle at all. It's not at all subtle. Like the most mindful glance at the watch, like where you take about 2.5 minutes to I'm speeding it up for teaching purposes, but where you're no one can tell, right? None of you can tell. And I was sure there must be, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes left in the 45-minute sit, and there was 24 more minutes left. So there's a sense of, okay, I'm almost through, living hell. Oh my God, what am I doing? But I'm too polite, as all are you, to run screaming from the room, which is what I wanted to do. It was actually super tough and super hard. And, Sylvia finally rang the bell. And then she said something that has stayed with me for 25 years, and I've shared with some of you. She said, so tonight, as you were meditating, some of you had a good meditation, and a few self-satisfied jerks went no, I'm kidding, of course, but there's people yeah, it was a really good meditation. I felt calm, there weren't a lot of thoughts, it was quite pleasant. And she said, and some of you had a really bad meditation. I'm thinking, yeah. And she said, and those of you that feel you had a bad meditation, the mind was really busy. There was a lot of distraction, a lot of discomfort, a lot of difficulty. You couldn't stay on the mind. I'm like, are you in my head? And, she gives this, and I'm thinking, I'm the only one. Everybody else is great at this. We do these. Our minds are so silly. And then she said something that has stayed with me ever since. She said, those of you that had the bad meditation had the best meditations. I'm like, say what? She said, you really got an opportunity to practice. You got to take that mind and put it back on the breath. You got to notice you'd been daydreaming for 7 minutes and bring it back to the breath. You got to watch the discomfort and suffering in the mind at times and stay through it with equanimity and come back to the breath. She said, you had a better meditation. And I thought, wow, thank you for reminding us that it is the practice and the effort, number 2, and the diligence and the observation and the just sticking to it, even when it's tough, that in time is going to yield the tranquility, the concentration, and the equanimity. So I share that with you, just in case there's one or two of you for whom that's helpful to hear. So you arrive on a planet, and someone says, I have 2 maps. Here's the suffering map. Here's the liberation map. What do you want? We all immediately said, we want the liberation map. It's here. I've just explained it. The Buddha explained it. I'm a poor messenger of a great message. There are many maps in Buddha Dharma, and they're all about the same thing. Here's how to navigate your way to the cessation of mental suffering. Step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment, class by class, conversation by conversation, kiss by kiss, sip of tea by sip of tea. Here's how to navigate your way to the freedom from suffering. So we'll practice together just for a couple of minutes, and then I'll ring the bell for the end of the class. Just settling in to check in with the mind and check in with the breath. Mindfulness, curiosity, effort, pleasure and joy, tranquility and calm, concentration and focus, and equanimity with the truth of how things are. 7 profound qualities of mind. And we can let the teaching simply slip away as we simply practice this mindful breath as best we're able right now. We begin with an aspiration and we close with a dedication, sharing the intention with ourselves and with what's called all beings, because all beings wish to be free from suffering. By the merit of this powerful activity of studying Dharma and meditating together, may there be a cessation of the poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion. May we all awaken swiftly for the benefit of all beings.